3 months ago, we introduced you to Lori Scott. Her daughter Cassidy is in a wheelchair, and her school evacuation plan left Cassidy in the second-story stairwell waiting for emergency responders to arrive in the event of an emergency. Well, Lori wanted that policy changed, so she took her case to the state legislature, and reporter Mallory Safaste has more on her progress tonight.
Kelly, when Howard County Public Schools did not work with Lori on implementing emergency evacuation devices for her daughter and other kids with disabilities, she contacted legislators, and together they drafted a bill that would do that. On Tuesday, Governor Larry Hogan signed that bill into law.
And they have done that.
Sitting around this table in January, Lori Scott first introduced us to her daughter Cassidy. Cassidy is 15 and requires a wheelchair to get around. Her school evacuation plan stated that if Cassidy was on the second floor of Folly Quarter Middle School during an emergency, she would wait in a stairwell for emergency responders to assist her out of the building. Her mom, Lori, didn't want her daughter left behind, and when she didn't get the answer she wanted from the school system, she turned to the legislature.
Everybody should be removed from a burning building or, a building that's having an emergency in it at the time of the emergency. Not 15 minutes later, not 30 minutes later, not waiting on EMS.
3 months later, there's now a new law that requires the State Department of Education to update their guidelines on evacuating individuals with disabilities.
They said that they had plans available, but for us, after reading them and comparing them to other jurisdictions in the country, they're too broad and not specific enough.
Delegate Alonzo Washington sponsored House Bill 1061 that passed unanimously in the House and Senate. It was signed by Governor Hogan on Tuesday. For
this issue, man, it's just horrible to think that our students are literally left in a stairwell in the cases of a fire or an emergency where they can't fend for themselves. And this bill will change that comprehensively throughout the state.
What this means is that staff, students, and visitors to any public schools will have an accommodation made for them if a person with disabilities comes into the school and there's an emergency.
The law does not explicitly state what that accommodation must be. There are several different evacuation devices that can help get someone down the stairs and out of the building when an elevator cannot be used. So it'll be up to the state and school systems to interpret what accommodation means to them.
We'll have some variances across the state, but the good news is we'll have a device.
Now, after our story ran in January, a company that supplies evacuation chairs donated one to Cassidy. Her mom tells us the school system has not yet installed the chair in the school, but Lori is hopeful that'll change once the State Department of Education updates their guidelines. Kelly?